If you want to become a better communicator, develop the ability to change your identity. Identity, in a sense, is the actions we repeatedly do or the actions we attach to someone. A quick example is someone who watches TV all day. Because their actions, we're going to identify them as lazy. So to change our identity, we have to change our actions. Not just what we repeatedly do, but also what we say about what we do. Because what we say changes what we see, and thus our perception of either the person we're looking at or of ourselves. And that's where a lot of people are not careful. They're not careful in what they say about other people, and that changes their perception and thus how they communicate with them. For example, if we label someone as mean, we start viewing their actions through that lens. If they do something nice, we say, man, that's inconsistent to the character. But they do something mean, even one thing, that reinforces that label, reinforces that belief we already have of them. And once again, that changes the way we communicate with them. We might treat them with contempt. We might treat them simply inconsistent to what they have earned because we have placed a self-imposed label upon them. And the thing about self-imposed labels is that it's rare for someone to supersede the self-imposed identities we attach to them. So it's going to take a lot of consistent, repeated action for someone who we've labeled as mean to then be labeled as nice, because one mean action just reinforces our poor perception of them. So it's important, especially if you don't know the person, to label them in a good light. Say, man, this girl is beautiful. This guy is awesome. I love this person. By viewing them in that way, you then subconsciously, automatically will communicate them in a more influential way because you're acting out of love. See, one thing I realized, or I believe is true at least, is that the people who love least actually love themselves least. Like the people who judge others most are the most judgmental of themselves. It's just the outward expression of what is going on inside. So if we have better communication within ourselves, it ends up overflowing to other people. That's why it's so important to change what we say about ourselves. If we say, man, I'm so mean, I'm ugly, I'm this, that's going to be reflected in our communication, and we're going to have less influential communication with other people because we start seeing them the same way we see ourselves. I like to say this: lack of acceptance leads to insecurities, and insecurities leads to lack of judgment. See, some people are mean because they don't get approval from others. So to get a sense of worthiness, they have to bring other people down to their own level. And that's what we do when we don't love ourselves. If I don't love myself, I tend to be more likely to hate on other people. So I see myself as more worthy because I'm equal with them. So that's the first step in becoming a more influential communicator. Change what you say about yourself, because when you change what you say, you change how you see yourself and thus how you communicate with other people. And do the same thing with other people. Choose to view them in a good light. Don't give them a self-imposed identity they have not earned. Now, the second part of this is identity is the actions we repeatedly do. And that's what we need to change to become a better communicator, because people are different. There's introverts, there's omniverts, there's extroverts, there's people who like to talk fast and people who talk slow and loud and soft. There's different people we're going to encounter when we're communicating. So if we match how they are, they'll make us more influential on them. For example, if you're talking to an extrovert, well, if you choose to be more extroverted, or you choose to be a better listener and allowing them to talk, you ask them better questions, well, they're going to like you more. They're going to like talking to you more because you're choosing to match who they are. You're not staying the same in your identity. And that's where people mess up. They say, hey, this is who I am. So I don't care who I'm talking to. I'm going to act the same exact way. The thing is, people don't like that. They often like people who are like themselves. So if you're an introvert and you choose to act introverted, they're going to like you more than if you're an extrovert choosing to stay extroverted instead of being introverted around an introvert. So I'm not exactly saying change who you are, but I am saying change your identity, the actions you're choosing to do. If you're on an introvert, match your body language, match your tone. They'll help you to be influential on them because you're matching who they are. Another thing that goes along with this is what you say to other people, not just about other people, what you actually say to them. You have to change your identity in the things you say. Because some people, they love confrontation. Some people love confirmation. Some people love accountability. Some people hate it, right? So you got to know your audience, know who you're talking to so you can change what you're talking about. For me personally, I love words of encouragement and I hate words that are corrupt, words that are curse words. I just don't like being around people who are super negative in their language. So to be more influential on me, you should use more encouraging language, use more positive language, and that'll make me like you more, want to be around you more, and give you an opportunity to influence me in a positive way, as opposed to using corrupt words and coarse language. Now, as other people, they're okay with that, right? So you can use that, but you have to change your identity based on who you're talking to. So when we change what we say about ourselves, we'll change the way we see ourselves. We may see ourselves as more loving, less judgmental. And as an outpouring that, we start seeing others in that light as well. We'll love them more, we'll be less judgmental on them, and they'll make us better communicators with them, more effective, more influential in what we say. Now, the next thing we need to work on is what we say to ourselves, our self-talk, what we choose to think about. I love what Myron Golden said. He said, you can speak without thinking, but you can't think without words, right? Self-talk, that's how you think. You just talk to yourself and that becomes the thoughts you have, right? So the better we become at our self-talk, the better our communication will be, because we'll have a greater identity. We'll have more consistent actions. See, a lot of people struggle with consistency because of the things they tell themselves. They say, man, I don't want to work out today. Man, this is going to be hard. Man, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that. They tell themselves all these things in their self-talk. So now it's harder to act in a way that's inconsistent to the thoughts they repeatedly have. That's why they can't stay consistent. And it shows up in their communication. Some days they're good at communicating. Some days they're trash and mean. And they're just impatient with people because of their self-talk. So we got to make sure to master what we tell ourselves. How can we get better at talking to ourselves? Well, one thing we can do is build a better vocabulary, have more words we can pull in our arsenal to be able to use. Because if what he said was true and that we think with our words, that means the more words you know, the more clearer you can think. Another way to think clearer is asking questions. Questions naturally bring you awareness of answers. So if the better questions I have, the better answers I'll get from myself, and thus the better my actions can become because I can live according to those answers. So if I ask myself, man, who am I talking to? How can I make this a great conversation? Well, naturally, my brain will look for answers to that questions, and that'll give me awareness of how I can become a better communicator to them. And that's what people struggle with. They choose not to change their identity when they're talking to other people. So when they're around extroverts and introverts, they act the same way. So that one group likes them more and the other group does not like them as much in the sense of communicating. They don't have as much connections with them. And a great way to use our self-talk to become influential in our communication is by building confidence within ourselves. That's what a lot of people struggle with. They're not confident when they communicate, especially if they're trying to ask out a girl, they're trying to present before a class or do all these things. They're not confident. See, confidence means to trust. The more we trust ourselves, the more confidence we'll have within ourselves. And one reason people don't trust themselves is because of their self-talk. They've lied to themselves so many times in the past. They said, hey, I'm going to work out today, and they didn't work out. Hey, I'm going to start this diet. Hey, I'm going to start making videos, and they don't follow their word. So by lying to themselves, they're convincing themselves not to trust themselves, not to have confidence in what they say. So if we keep our word to ourselves, we'll have evidence to point to that we can trust ourselves. See, trust is the certainty that comes from believing evidence. But if I have no evidence I can point to and focus on and believe, I'm not going to trust myself. It's just made up confidence. But when I have evidence, when I keep my word to myself, when I have effective self-talk, I'm not going to have more confidence. And when we build confidence, we'll be able to talk to anyone we want to. It doesn't matter who they are, how pretty they are, or how famous they are. It doesn't matter how many people we're presenting a project to or whatever we're doing. We're going to have confidence because we mastered our self-talk first. But in order to get this type of confidence, you have to change your identity. You have to have actions you can point to, evidence you can look at and believe so you can trust yourself. That's why it's so important to have consistent thoughts in the first place, because more consistent thoughts leads to more consistent actions. And when you have actions, you have evidence to point to and believe in, so that you can then communicate in a better way because you trust yourself. Next thing we can do and how we can change our identity to become more influential in our communication is changing who we are based on who we're talking to. If you're talking to an extrovert, for example, become more extroverted, or be a better listener. Make sure to ask them questions so they can talk to you more. Just match who they are. If you're talking to an introvert, well, master your tone, master your body language, match who they are so you can build better connection with them and have more effective communication with them. But that's what people don't want to do. Some people are so comfortable staying in their own identities that they made for themselves, they choose not to change. But that can limit the connections they make with other people. If they're extroverted, constantly talking to introverts, well, the introvert may be less comfortable around that extroverted person. So if they don't change their identity, once again, they limit the influence they can have on another person. So be able to change your actions, what you do based on who you're talking to. Now, the fifth step, after you change who you are based on who you're talking to, is change what you say to the other person. See, some people love accountability. Other people love confrontation. You gotta know what they prefer so you can meet them where they're at and thus influence them in a better way. For example, I love words of encouragement. When you encourage me or compliment me, that's what I love. Vice versa. I don't like words that are corrupt, words that are hateful, words that are negative, constantly pulling other people down. I don't like that. So if you want to become more influential on me, use words that encourage. You gotta know what I prefer and change your identity. Change what you say to me based upon that. And that'll make you, once again, more influential. And if you do those 5 things, if you change what you say about other people so you can change how you see other people, when you change what you say about yourself, change the way you see yourself, and change what you say to yourself, building confidence, when you match who they are based on who you're talking to, and when you change what you say to the other person, you will have better communication because you're choosing to change your identity. Thank you guys for watching. I also wrote a book on influence. It's called Controlling the Controllables, How Anyone Can Become Influential. So if you want to learn more from me about how to become influential, check out this book at alstonmurray.com and you'll find it there. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next one.